The Premier League has had its fair share of Asian players, from Al Habsi and his heroics at relegation fight in Wigan, Son in this current Spurs side, and even Okazaki when he helped Leicester to lift the Premier League title. Yet despite all this, there's one man that stands out from the rest. During his time as a player, he won 7 league titles, 5 domestic cups, 5 domestic Super Cups, a Champions League, a Club World Cup, and even managed 4th in the World Cup. Not bad at all, that really, is it? Of course you've clicked the video, you know who it is, it's Park Ji-sung. A player known for his work rate, ability to play anywhere in the midfield or up top, and his superhuman stamina. Like, you look at Kante now and everyone says how much he can run, but Park was just next level, even compared to him. Park's career started out differently to most footballers. He began playing for his elementary school. During this time, he helped them win the league and was considered one of the best young talents in South Korea. This of course made many clubs interested in him. After he finished elementary school, he moved on to high school and obviously helped them win the league title. Yet despite this, he was actually rejected by every club he tried out for because he was too small. In the end, he was picked up by a university side, Mahjong University, on the recommendation of the high school coach. He started training with the university just a few months before he actually graduated high school, and during this time the university was offered the chance to train with the South Korean Olympic team. Despite Park obviously still being in high school, he was invited down to this training, and his performances in the training were so good he was actually drafted into the Olympic side at age 18 without ever playing a professional game. The story goes that Park's inclusion was such a shock to the country that everyone believes he only got it because the university coach beat the Olympic coach in a game of Go. Now this is where Park's career really starts to take off. On April 5th, 2000, South Korea played a game against Laos in the 2000 AFC Cup qualifiers. South Korea comfortably won the game 9-0, but the real story here is that Park made his national team debut despite playing for a university and not a professional club. That is insane. I cannot imagine many other players have done that before, made a national team game without even being a professional. He would then go on to play 2 more games, a 7-0 win over Mongolia and a 4-0 win over Myanmar respectively. Park had made 3 official appearances for his national side in the space of 5 days without having a professional club. As you can imagine, this wouldn't last long, and in June of 2000, Kyoto Purple Sanga, who were in Japan's top flight, signed him up. Now before we get into this, you need to understand how the J-League used to work. Originally split into 2 halves, the first half of the season and the second half of the season. The winner of each half would play each other in the final to determine the league's overall winner, and to decide on relegation, whoever had the least overall points between the 2 halves would go down, and you also couldn't draw a game. If a game ended a draw, it would just go into extra time. In the 2000 season, in the first half of the season, Kyoto Purple Sanga actually finished bottom of the first half, taking only 7 points from 15 matches. That's shocking. It's actually shocking. And then during the break between the first half and the second half was when they signed Park. But before Park could even play his first professional game, he had some more international games to play. The first one was in the 2000 LG Nations Cup. The opening game against Macedonia, South Korea won 2-1, and Park actually scored the second, giving him his first international goal. Still not played a professional game. And of course the second one was in the final of this cup against Egypt. We found some issues with this though, because some sources list it as a 1-0 South Korea win, some list it as a 2-1 South Korea win, and some list it as a 2-1 Egypt win. So, not got a bloody clue who won this, but it's the taking part that counts in it really. The second tournament was the 2000 Summer Olympics. The reason he's even in the national side in the first place is because of the Olympics. They were handed a difficult group of Spain, Chile and Morocco, and South Korea would finish 3rd and get knocked out despite actually winning 2 of their games, and the only loss came against Spain, a game in which a certain Xavi scored. At 19 years old, Park would finally make his professional debut in the first game of the season's second half. This was a 3-2 win over Jeff United Chiba. Park would go on to play 13 of the 15 games this season, getting his first and only goal in a 3-1 loss to Kashima Antlers. Park helped Kyoto to a 12th place finish in the second half of the season with a much improved 18 points from 15 games, and it wouldn't be enough though, as they would still get relegated in 15th, just 3 points away from safety. During this season, the 2000 AFC Asian Cup kicked off. Park was in the squad, and South Korea were handed a group with China, Indonesia and Kuwait. They drew 2-2 against China, lost to Kuwait 1-0 and beat Indonesia 3-0 thanks to a hat-trick from the Middlesbrough legend Lee Dong-gook. This was enough to see them into the next round, where they beat an Ali Daya-led Iran 2-1 before losing to Saudi Arabia 2-1 in the semi-final. They would go on to finish third after beating China 1-0, and Lee Dong-gook of all people took the golden boot home, which I'm sure Middlesbrough fans are not surprised by. The following season would see Park playing in the J2 League, Japan's second division. The second division is played in more of a regular fashion, all the way through with no breaks. The league had 12 teams and each team played 44 games, so they faced each side 4 times. The first game of the season would see Park scoring a 2-2 draw with Monteido Yagamata. After playing each team once, they found themselves in second place with 18 points. Park had appeared in 10 of these opening 11 games, missing just 1 due to call-up for the national team. This was another shot at everyone's favourite tournament, the LG Nations Cup, beating Iran 1-0 in the first game, then meeting Egypt in the final again, but this time they did win it 2-1. 3 more games would be played, and then a break for the Confeds Cup. The 2001 Confederations Cup was being held after this, and South Korea have qualified as co-hosts. With a group of France, Australia and Mexico, South Korea managed to get an impressive 6 points, winning 2 out of 3 of the matches. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough, as France and Australia also had 6 points, but both had superior goal difference over South Korea, which sent them packing. Park returned to Kyoto Purple Sanga and would play 26 of the remaining 30 games. A 2-1 win on the second last game of the season would secure them the title. Between the end of this season and the start of the next season, the 2002 Gold Cup was underway. South Korea, along with Ecuador, had received invites to participate despite not being in the correct confederation, and they were put in a group with the USA and Cuba. South Korea would lose the opening game 2-1 to the USA, with the USA scoring the winner in the 90th minute. The next game was a 0-0 against Cuba, and both South Korea and Cuba ended with 1 point, but South Korea advanced on goals scored with their 1. In the next round, they faced Mexico and won on penalties after a dull 0-0 affair. And in the semi-final, they got against Costa Rica, who comfortably beat them 3-1, and then they lost 2-1 in the third place game against Canada. The next season would be a very successful one for Park. During the first half of the season, a 3-month break was taken because of this little thing called the World Cup. However, before this, South Korea played in 3 international friendlies. The second was against England. This was the first time anyone in the UK would have seen Park play, and the game finished 1-1, and as I'm sure you're all aware, Park scored the equaliser in that game. The next was against France. France won the game 3-2, but Park again got on the score sheet to make it 1-1 at the time, and he clearly proved in these friendlies that he could play with the big boys after such good games against France and England. The 2002 World Cup came around, and it was South Korea who were joint hosts along with Japan. The first game saw South Korea face Poland. A shock 2-0 win for the Koreans gave them their first ever World Cup group stage win, and things would only get better. After drawing the second game 1-0 to the USA, they entered the last game against favourites Portugal. Portugal find themselves third place with 3 points, following a win over Poland and a shock opening day defeat to the USA. South Korea had 4 points, knowing that a draw would be enough to see them out of the group stages for the first time in history. At 70 minutes gone, the scores were 0-0. Step up Park. He brings down this lovely cross, sells the defender and nutmegs the goalkeeper, who happened to be the legendary Bayer. 1-0 South Korea. The game ends. South Korea not only qualified out of the group, they only went and bloody won it. Despite winning the group, they got placed against the mighty Italians. The game ended up being controversial for so many reasons. The referees were all over the place, but the South Koreans won't care as they won the game 2-1. They somehow found themselves in a World Cup quarter-final, this time against Spain. The Spanish side had the likes of Casillas, Puyol, Raúl, Xavi and Hierro. Yet after 120 minutes, still tied at 0-0, and South Korea won the shootout. Park scored his penalty. Of course he did. The semi-final was against Germany. The Germans were one step too much for the little old South Korea, beating them 1-0 with a Michael Ballack goal. Third place, they played against Turkey, who themselves had had an amazing run to reach this stage, and the Turks ended up 3-2 winners, and Park had just placed 4th place at a World Cup on home soil, while knocking out Portugal, Italy and Spain. Not too bad, and his goal against Portugal were winning the Korean Football Association Goal of the Year. The J-League started up again, and after the first half of the season, Kyoto Purple Sanga would finish in 6th place. Park played 13 of these games, scoring 4 good times. During the second half of the season, Park made 12 appearances out of 15, scoring a further 3 goals and helping Kyoto Purple Sanga finish the second half of the season in 7th. The overall season, they finished themselves in 5th place on the first season back in the top flight. Didn't stop here though, as Kyoto found themselves on a cup run and managed to make it all the way to the final, where they faced holders Kashima Antlers. Kyoto won the game 2-1, with Park getting the first goal of the game. So Park had ended the season in 4th place at the World Cup and won the domestic cup for the first time. Due to the way the J-League is scheduled, the league ends in November and the cup final is the last game of the season. On this season, the cup final was held on the 1st of January 2003, just as the winter window opened for European sides. And after that World Cup he had just had and just winning a domestic cup, you can bet he got picked up. €5 million PSV played for him. He made his debut against Waldwick, coming on as a second half sub for the man with the best name in football history, Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink. PSV ended up 1-0 winners and Park would feature in the next game, but this time coming on at half time for Dennis Rommedahl. PSV found themselves already 5-0 up over FC Zwolle. Park would then pick up an injury and only feature in a further 6 games this season, all from the bench. However, it was enough and he helped PSV reach a league title and picked up his first ever Eredivisie winners medal. PSV would open the following season with a game against FC Utrecht in the Johan Cruyff Shield, a game which is very similar to the Community Shield that's played here in England. Park played the full 90 minutes as they ran out 3-1 winners and would get a goal in PSV's second game of the league in a 6-1 win over Willem II. This would be his first goal for the club. Park got 2 assists and a goal in that game as well. The Champions League soon came around and PSV had been given a group of Monaco, AEK Athens and Deportivo de la Coruna. Park made his debut against Monaco as PSV lost 2-1. PSV would be agonisingly close to getting out of this group, finishing third, only 1 point behind the winners and losing 2 away goals against Deportivo. PSV then moved into the UEFA Cup as it was back then, but it's now the Europa League, and made it all the way to the quarter-finals before losing 3-2 on aggregate to Newcastle. In the league, Park would go on to play 28 out of 34 games, which is a total of 1,797 minutes, which was an average of 64 minutes a game. PSV would end the season in second, unfortunately losing out to Ajax. During the season, a few international fixtures were played. The 2006 World Cup qualifiers had begun and South Korea started with 2 2-0 wins over Lebanon and Vietnam. Then it was time for the 2004 Asian Cup, where South Korea had been handed a group of Jordan, Kuwait and United Arab Emirates. The opening game was 0-0 to Jordan, but Park didn't play in this game. He did, however, play in the next game, which was the 2-0 win over the UAE. The last game was a solid 4-0 win over Kuwait. They got out of the group, but faced a difficult game against Iran, who beat them 4-3. The 04-05 season was beginning and PSV had just sold Robin, so with a space on the right wing up for grabs, Park was sure to make it his. Season started with an away goal against Red Star in the Champions League qualifying. PSV lost 3-2, but Park opened the scoring that night. They won the home leg 5-0 and managed to reach the group stage. In this group stage, they would be put against Panathinaikos, Rosenborg and Arsenal. PSV would get out of the group in second place, tied on points with Arsenal but behind them on head-to-head. The round of 16 would pit them against Monaco, and they ran out comfortable 3-0 winners on aggregate. The quarter-finals would have them face a difficult Lyon side. Both games ended 1-1, but PSV would win the shootout to make it to the semis, where AC Milan awaited. The away leg ended 2-0 to AC Milan, with the second being scored in the 90th minute. The home leg was much better for PSV as they won 3-1, with Park actually getting the opener. AC Milan made it 2-1 in the 90th minute, only for PSV to make it 3-1 almost straight from kick-off, meaning AC Milan had advanced from a single away goal, having scored 2 out of 3 of their goals in the 90th minute over 2 legs. That's heartbreaking for PSV. This did, however, set up the famous Istanbul final between Liverpool and AC Milan, and I don't think anyone needs reminding what happened there. Park was chosen alongside the likes of Shevchenko, Adriano, Eto'o and Ronaldinho as nominees for the UEFA Best Attacker this season, which shows the kind of impact he had on Europe. In the league, Park played 28 out of 34 games for a total of 2,378 minutes, this time a much improved average of 84 minutes a game. He also managed to get 7 goals and 5 assists as PSV would win the league 10 points ahead of second placed Ajax and only lost 1 game in the process. In the Cup, PSV would win it to complete a double as they beat Willem II 4-0 in the final, with Park getting the third of the game. And on the international stage, World Cup qualifiers were all that happened this season. South Korea finished second place in their group, meaning they qualified, Park's only goal coming in a 4-0 win over Kuwait. The season proved to be a massive success for both PSV and Park, picking up a League Cup double and being inches away from a Champions League final. This would prove to be Park's last season as PSV, as Manchester United would come in for a £4 million bid for him, which was an absolute bargain when you considered PSV paid €5 million, which isn't that much of a profit they've made if they've made one at all. And Park would go on to become one of Sir Alex Ferguson's most loved players over at Manchester United. Over the first season, he made 33 league appearances, including games against the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City and Chelsea. being used for the big games due to his ability to play almost anywhere on the pitch and follow tactical instructions to the T without question. He started the season strong, making appearances in the first 7 league games, and in the 8th putting a man-of-the-match performance as United beat Fulham 3-2 with Park getting all 3 assists. His first goal for the club was in the League Cup against Birmingham as United won 3-1. His final goal of the season was against Arsenal, in which United won 2-0 and United would end the season in 2nd place. The Champions League this season would be an absolute disaster for Man United. A group of Villarreal, Benfica and Lille, and United was finished in just last with 6 points. The positive for Park though was that when he came on as a sub for Giggs in the home game against Lille, he was given the captain's armband, making him the first Asian player to ever captain Manchester United. The League Cup would see United win it however, with a 4-0 win over Wigan in the final, and the FA Cup saw United knocked out by Liverpool in the 5th round, however Park didn't play. This summer Germany hosted the 2006 World Cup, and South Korea had been drawn in a group against France, Togo and Switzerland. They started the campaign with a nice 2-1 win over Togo, sending them top of the group after France and Switzerland could only manage a draw. The next game was against France and it ended 1-1, and once again Park had scored against them. And the Switzerland beat Togo, meaning both Korea and Switzerland had 4 points and France had 2. The final game saw Switzerland face South Korea in a game that both knew a win would guarantee qualification, and Switzerland proved too strong for them and beat them 2-0, and as France beat Togo 2-0 and qualified in 2nd, 1 point ahead of Korea, which is heartbreaking for them. The next season was the 06-07 season, and it was one of very mixed emotions for Park as he would get injured and miss the majority of the season, making just 14 league appearances, 5 FA Cup appearances and 1 in the Champions League. Despite this though, he still managed to get 5 goals and 3 assists in the league as United were going to be Premier League champions, and Park had done enough to earn himself a Premier League winners medal, making him the first South Korean player to do so. The 07-08 season was a slower start for Park. Still recovering from the injury from the previous season, he wouldn't make his first appearance until Boxing Day, and this was in a 4-0 win over Sunderland. Despite this, he was given a medal for winning the Community Shield. His first start of the season would come in a Champions League quarter-final away at Roma. He would assist the second goal in a 2-0 win, and Park would also play the full game in the second leg as United won 1-0. The semi-final saw them face Barcelona in a game in which United would win 1-0 on aggregate thanks to an absolute belter from Paul Scholes. The final was played against Chelsea, and despite playing every minute of the quarters and semis, Sir Alex left Park out of the actual matchday squad. He didn't even make the bench. Sir Alex has since come out and said this was one of the hardest decisions he has ever had to make, and the only one he regrets. United were going to win the game on penalties thanks to a certain defender slipping over during his and hitting the post. Even though he didn't play in the final, he was eligible for a winner's medal, making him the first Asian to ever win the Champions League. United were going to win the Premier League for a 2nd season in a row, and they were knocked out of the League Cup in the 3rd round and the FA Cup in the 6th. During this season, the 2010 World Cup qualifiers started. South Korea topped their group and qualified along with North Korea. Due to Park's knee injury, he didn't appear in many of these games. In the 08-09 season was back to Park's usual fitness levels. He again missed the Community Shield, but United beat Portsmouth and he landed himself a medal. His first game ended up being the UEFA Super Cup, a game in which Zenit were actually shock winners against United 2-1. Park would make his first appearance in the Prem in a 1-1 draw against Chelsea, Park getting the first goal. He was going to make 40 appearances this season across 6 competitions, scoring 4 times and assisting 3. In the Champions League, Park were playing 4 out of 6 of the group games to help United top the group. In the round of 16, United were drawing against Inter Milan. Park played the full first leg and came on as a sub in the second leg as they won 2-0. The quarter-final saw them beat Porto in a thrilling game that saw Ronaldo score what is probably one of the best goals he's ever scored. The semi-final matched them with Arsenal. Park didn't play the first game, but United won 1-0. In the away game, United won 3-1 and Park scored the first. He was selected to play the final this time, however it was against Barcelona and they were beaten comfortably 2-0. But this wasn't the last we'd see of Park in a Champions League final. In the league, Man United would go on to win it for a 3rd time in a row. Halfway during this league campaign, they took a short break to appear in the Club World Cup. United beat Gamba Osaka 5-3 and then LDU Quito 1-0 in the final to win the trophy. United would lose to Everton in the FA Cup semi-final but beat Spurs on penalty in the League Cup final. This meant United ended the season with the Premier League, the Community Shield, the Club World Cup and the League Cup, as well as making the Champions League final. The 09-10 season saw Park struggle for the first team game time, making just 1,635 minutes all season. That being said, he was still utilised in big games, played in all but 4 Champions League games, the Community Shield, the League Cup final and facing Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool and Manchester City in the league, showing that even when not playing, Sir Alex still saw his value and someone he could trust when needed. The season started with a Community Shield loss to Chelsea on penalties and Park was subbed on in the 75th minute. In the Champions League, United ended up getting knocked out on away goals in the quarter-final against Bayern Munich. Park scored his only goal of this Champions League campaign in a 4-0 win over AC Milan. In the league, United would finish second, 1 point behind Chelsea. Park managed 4 goals and 1 assist, and that lone assist was of course against Arsenal in a 3-1 win. Leeds knocked United out of the FA Cup this season, but United did win the League Cup with a 2-1 win over Aston Villa, with Park playing 85 minutes. The following summer would be Park's last tournament for South Korea, the 2010 FIFA World Cup. Before we get to this though, we need to look at a friendly tournament that happened between South Korea and Japan. South Korea won 2-0, Park scored the opener, and it won the Korea Football Association Goal of the Year, giving Park the award for the second time. In the World Cup, South Korea were handed a group with Greece, Argentina and Nigeria. They beat Greece in the first game 2-0, Park bagged the second. In the second game they were handed a 4-1 thumping by Argentina, meaning they go into the final game with Nigeria in second place with 3 points. Argentina were through, but all the other 3 teams still had it all to play for. In the end, Korea drew 2-2 to Nigeria and Greece lost to Argentina, meaning Korea came second with 4 points. In the next round, South Korea were knocked out to Uruguay 2-1 thanks to a Luis Suarez brace. Going into the next season, the 2010-11 season, Park once again had injury issues and only managed to make 28 appearances in all competitions. That being said, he still played 9 of United's 13 Champions League games as they once again made it to the final and ended up losing to Barcelona. As with the last few years, United were in the Community Shield, and again against Chelsea, United won this one 3-1 with Park playing half of the match. In the Champions League, United were in a group with Rangers, Valencia and Bursaspor. Park played 5 of 6 of the games, getting 2 assists as he helped them top the group. In the last 16 they faced Marseille. United went through 2-1 but Park was injured for both games. He would return for the quarter-final against Chelsea, which United won the first leg 1-0 and the home leg 2-1, and Park bagged the second in that. The semi-final match then with Schalke, United won both legs and went through comfortably 6-1 on aggregate, but Park did miss the second game. And as I've just mentioned, they played Barcelona in the final, and Barcelona were once again too good. Park played the full 90 minutes, meaning he had appeared in 2 Champions League finals and lost them both, but still had a Champions League medal for the one he didn't appear in. This also made Park the first Asian player to play in 2 Champions League finals. In the league, Park made 15 appearances, scoring 5 and assisting 3. One of these goals came right on the stroke of half-time in a 1-0 win against Arsenal. It was an interesting header to say the least, but it went in and showed up he pops up in big games. United went on to win the league title yet again. In the FA Cup, Park made 1 appearance, a semi-final defeat to Manchester City. In the League Cup, they were knocked out in the quarter-finals after a hammering from West Ham 4-0. The 11-12 season would prove to be his last at Man United and was without a doubt his least successful, only managing 28 games and, like always, starting off with the Community Shield, this time against Man City. United won 3-2 in dramatic fashion, however Park once again didn't play. The Champions League would be a bad one, a group of Benfica, Basel and Aletu Galati. Should have been easy work really, instead they finished 3rd and found themselves in the Europa League. They beat Ajax on away goals before crashing out to Athletic Bilbao 5-3 on aggregate. The FA Cup and League Cups were also bad, getting knocked out by Liverpool 2-1 in the 4th round of the FA Cup, with Park scoring United's only goal. And they lost to Crystal Palace in the quarter-final of the League Cup 2-1 in extra time. In the Premier League, I feel like you all already know what happened. The full-time whistle went at the stadium alight, United had won 1-0, thought they won the league. Step up Aguero. During this season, Park would play in a World Cup qualifier against Kuwait. South Korea won 2-0, and this proved to be Park's last ever international game. Once this season was done, he went to QPR for an undisclosed fee. He was made club captain straight away and made his debut on the first game of the season, a 5-0 home loss to Swansea. Park wouldn't get a win in a QPR shirt until the 11th game of the season when they beat Chelsea 1-0. Of course they did. They would only get 2 more wins all season over Southampton and Sunderland. The season finished with QPR in last place and Park having scored 0 goals and getting just 3 assists. 1 season left on his QPR contract and then being relegated from the top flight, PSV took him on loan for this final year and he was met with nothing but love from the PSV faithfuls. He made his debut against AC Milan in a Champions League qualifier. The game ended 1-0 with Park playing just shy of 70 minutes. He made his league debut in the 3rd game of the season, a 1-0 draw against Hercules Almelo. Park scored the PSV goal. He would get his first full 90 minutes a few games later in a massive game against rivals Ajax. PSV won the game 4-0 with Park getting a goal and 2 assists, again showing he comes alive in the big games when it matters most. Park will go on to feature in most games for PSV, playing in 27 games, and he managed to get 2 goals and 5 assists. At the end of the season, Park was out of contract with QPR and had no club to return to. He retired and cited his recurring knee injuries as the issues. Park was met with all kind of plaudits upon retirement, and rightly so. He had won 19 pieces of silverware, reached 3 Champions League finals, got a 4th place at a World Cup. Andrea Pirlo wrote in his autobiography that Park was the only few players he could never get the better of, saying that the midfielder must have been the first nuclear-powered South Korean in history, in the sense that he rushed around the pitch at the speed of an electron. His ability to perform in big games is one that all players wishes they have, and the way he managed his stamina is something I've never seen before in a footballer. Park Ji-sung is truly a legend of South Korea and Asian football in general, a cult hero that is loved by both PSV and Manchester United, and he is a footballer that we'll probably never see the likes of again.